So somebody suggested Dhamma talk, so Perfectionism and Acceptance. Okay, so where does it actually come from? Right. Okay. So perfectionism, where does it actually come from? And usually, because perfectionism is an internal state, it's an internal emotional state, and it's conditioned from outside. In order for a person to have an internal state of perfectionism based on emotion, because it's your emotions, your feelings which actually drive you, your behavior, the course of your life. It's coming from outside. And it's coming from mum and dad, it can come from past lives, it can come from sibling rivalry between brothers and sisters. To give you an example, things like let's see. One family, I won't go into detail, one family with at least three sisters, one brother, and because mum and dad had very intelligent professional people, and I don't want to say this in an unkind way, but say mum and dad, being very smart cookies, what they would do with the children was they would have this kind of what would you say? It's almost like they would play. In a nutshell, they would play off the children against each other. Maybe I wouldn't say they weren't aware of it. There's very, very smart people. But it was like they would play the children off against each other, who was the good girl and who was the good boy and whatnot. So what you're doing is you're basically manipulating the child's behaviour to your advantage. You're the mum and dad, and in order to keep your kids in line and to make sure they're well behaved and to get them to do what you want them to do, it's like. For choice of better words, it's like you're, in a way you can be like, especially if you're super smart, with parents, it's like you're a puppet master. You're pulling the strings, and you're molding and you're changing the behaviour of your children. And I remember as a psychiatrist, a senior psychiatrist from a hospital where I was working in Sydney, said, even with his own children, because they have a very, very strong clinical foundation, these professional people, and he said that his two boys, his two sons, they were only 4 and 6. He said when they're born, they're born with like a core personality, like a core fixed personality with they're kiddies, but they have likes and dislikes, they have preferences. But they're like plasticine, you can add things to them, you can take things away. So you actually shape the nature of the child according to your, say, preferences. And I don't want to sound like too, too psychological, but even all parents do this. All parents do this to a degree, and it may be quite necessary because you just can't allow children to run free rein, because they can get up to all sorts of mischief and trouble, pick up all sorts of bad habits. They can be mixing with young people, the kids who aren't necessarily good for them. So it makes perfect sense that mum and dad actually shape the nature and the psychology of the child to a degree, as long as it doesn't move into, say, an unwholesome kind of mentality, a sort of, I can't think of the right words to describe it, almost unwholesome is the only word I can think of. It's based on intentions and behaviours which are not really good for the child at all, and not that fantastic for mum and dad either. If for people who are outside the family, they may think it's a little bit dodgy, a bit strange, and whatnot. But the thing is, you can get this situation where one of these people I know reasonably well, his sister was a perfectionist, but also she was very controlling as well, and she she wanted to have essentially, virtually full control of the husband and the finances, and she just ended up like fighting with the other sisters, arguing with her brother, and it's not really such a great perspective. I mean, it's good it has value to be a person, who, say for example you're living in a household with a family. It's good to be, a minimum level of to be tidy and to be clean and tidy around the place, look after your stuff and look after one's duties and responsibilities. But if you take these behaviors, say like with perfectionism, or you expect your child to be something that you want them to be, you want them to be, say for example, you can have a child who has real, it's got some significant sporting potential, or the child is really very, very, very intelligent, very smart. The memory's really attentive, learns very, very quickly. The brain and the mind is really quite sharp. So mum and dad may have very high expectations of them and may push them in a direction which isn't necessarily, especially for their emotional well-being. I remember there was a young lady who came to Ajahn Appiccato monastery when I was up in Brisbane, and very bright girl. She was, I think she was well under, I'm only guessing probably about 19, 20. She was doing a medical degree, the doctor's degree, plus a second degree on top of that. So, you can just imagine the workload. It's pretty extensive. And the pressure was that much, she was going to essentially leave home, and I don't know exactly what she was going to do academically, but her workload was, she had no social life, she didn't have as much time with her friends as she would have liked, and she's a young person, and she's been compromised, excessive study, work, exams, all the rest of it, that go with high-ranking degrees, especially the medical degree. It's not to be underestimated, the workload. Training to be a young doctor, and then an additional degree. It's really, there's not many people who can handle that, but she was very, very smart. But the parents, they virtually, from what the impression she gave me, the parents were pushing her out of her family home because that mum and dad wanted and expected more from her than she was prepared to give, and this kind of expectation wasn't good for her emotional health at all. She could handle it, but emotionally it's not healthy in the long term. I get, she would have had to thrown one of them in, one of those two degrees, probably the second degree. Because it's excessive. People can take a degree of pressure, but it reaches a point where you need to make a decision where it's just it's excessive. It's not good for your personal, say, emotional and mental health. So you can have a situation where mum and dad can have supposedly realistic expectations of a child. They can steer the child, encourage and steer, maybe put a little bit, I wouldn't say, a choice of better words, lead the child in a direction where they expect certain things from them, and that they feel, like parents can be quite proud, and it's like the child's an extension of mum and dad. You get situations where the mum, let's say the mother, the father, can project their what would you call it, their profile, their desires, their beliefs on the child, and they want the child to live out the person that they could never be. So you can have a situation where dad was say like had mid-ranked intelligence, and his son is super smart, and he wants his son to be everything that he was unable to be himself. So high aspirations, and the child may be academically up for it, but emotionally, he really doesn't want this at all. It's it's affecting the quality of his life, and it can lead to psychological disturbances, kind of stuff. So, the whole thing with perfectionism, you have people outside of you. This is where it's largely coming from, the vast majority of the time. Coming from parents, maybe sometimes sibling rivalry, sometimes past life stuff. You can have a situation where you can have a person who's could have a very, very high, say like a high birth, could have been a very, say, powerful person. Things like brilliant. The last life they were intellectually, academically brilliant. Very, very, just all the different kinds of traits. Brilliant, competitive, physically very, very, very competent, athletic, charming, good-looking. Whatever you can assume as far as human potential. If you're looking for someone who's just like almost stunning across the range, these kind of people will never be perfect. They will always have flaws and weaknesses. You'll never find anyone who's just absolutely fantastic across the range. Genetically and karmically, it's just not possible. So you get a situation where the person has this really strong sense of self, maybe entitlement. They really think that they are actually superior. They can come from, say, even like a royal birth. So you have the underlying outstanding kind of genetic potential from the last life, but not necessarily the current life. And then they come into this life. They could have even come from a high birth as well. They could have been say a young king or even a prince, or even the genders can change. Princess. A woman of high court, a powerful person in high court, a minister, female minister, of high birth, of high potential, and they come into into the current life, but because the karma is so complicated, they take a birth which is not at the same level as the previous birth. So they've dropped down. Karma, the way karma affects people. Karma moves towards like a balancing of faculties. So if you're, say for example, if you're very, very generous, you're very, very generous. The Buddha said this in the sutras. If you're very, very generous as a person in this life, you will be wealthy in your next birth. If you are a person who's very envious and jealous, and envious and jealous of others, what others have. You will be born into poverty in the next life. The way karma works, one of the major principles, and like nature, when you see forces and energies throughout the universe, you're looking at a balancing of energies. So whatever you see within the human mind, all these different refined faculties, potentials, this and that, if you don't actually follow and abide with the law, say the law of karma, and the major principles that, say, the Buddha laid down, there is going to be forces which will come into play, which will basically put you in a position where those faculties will be brought into balance, whether you like it or not. So, if you're like an angry person, the Buddha said this in the sutras, you're angry with others, you will be reborn ugly in your next life. If you harm other beings, if you inflict suffering and harm on other beings, especially your physical body will be affected. There will be disease processes. There will be the physical body will be afflicted with it could be all sorts of sort of compromised conditions, even things like premature cancer, trouble with skin, trouble with vascular system. So people who have any kind of physical affliction, almost guaranteed you have harmed other beings. Or if you're put into situations where you're the child of a parent who's compromised with, say, pharmacology, with drugs, This can happen as well. So it may not hit you directly, but it can move through the parents. It can reach you in many different ways. Like especially karma, is not to be underestimated. It's very refined and it's very precise, and it will get you if you basically do not move in accordance with karma. If you move in a direction which is contra, what would you say? I can't think of the right words, which doesn't work in line with, say, the forces and energies which move this universe. The universe works on a balance of forces and energies. We see that on a molecular level. We see the suns which rotate around the planets through the cosmos. You're looking at a balance of forces and energies. Same thing with the mind. You move contrary to karma, you're going to get whacked, or something's going to happen. It's going to put you in your place. So we may not necessarily see it initially, but over time, if you're fairly astute, fairly sharp, if you're a practitioner, you will see how it works. Nobody gets away with anything. So that sense of perfectionism. So if I put myself in that position, I'm a perfectionist. I have expectations of myself. I have expectations of other people. I have a high standard. I expect myself to perform. I expect others to meet my expectations. This whole thing's a bit tricky because you can have a situation where you can have a person who's a perfectionist, and they will perform probably at the best level that they can, but they may feel others should be just like them, or they may feel they are actually superior to you, they are better than you, and it's just not possible. You can get a person like living on the street, who's been living homeless on the street, who has more kindness than real human kindness than some of these. It makes perfect sense than some of the most incredibly wealthy, affluent people that we see within Australian society, who've got absolutely bags and bags of money, but really don't do that much for anyone except themselves and possibly their family and rich, powerful friends. And even though they've got the potential to do incredible things, you've got this person, almost penniless, living on the streets, who's got more real kindness and compassion and does more acts of benevolence than these multi-millionaires. And to give you an idea just how amazing some of these people are, I think it was Kerry Packer, and he had a very, very high-class accountant, senior accountant, say like the at the top of his game, the best of the best, and Kerry Packer had to pay something like $500 in tax. The guy's a multi-millionaire, and he was so I wouldn't say offended, but so displeased that he fired that guy. I mean, $500 is just absolutely nothing for this people. It's just chump change, and what's the right word? So it just goes to show just how amazing these people are, and how greedy these people are, and how selfish they are. When you see that kind of example, I'm not saying all these people are like this, but you've got, in order to it's a very, very complex equation that we're looking at. And I've seen very generous, supportive, kind, compassionate people who are multimillionaires. And one of the reasons why they're so successful in business is because people like them, they trust them, and they're prepared to do business, and they're prepared to lay down big money, $500,000, $1 million, even $5 million in business. There was a young woman, she was the leader, she was the president, the senior person within I can't think of the right words, a financial investment institution. So she was the boss. She was very, very capable. I think she was barely 30, 31, very, very smart, very capable. But the thing, she was a meditator, she was a Buddhist, and I think most of her people were Buddhist people as well. And one of the reasons why she was so successful, after several years, because it takes several years to get like a reputation, to get a standing within the financial investment fraternity. You need to get known. People need to know you, and they need to, but one of the reasons why she was so successful is because people trusted her, and they trusted her team members. And she told me outright that when people were investing with the company, they were high-class, high-powered financial investment advisors, smart, capable people. But she said one of the reasons why she was able to, undertake these successful transactions with the clients is because she had the confidence and trust of the clients concerned. And she said what happens is these people, these business people, these business managers, they're very, very smart people. You can't fool them very easy. So they're working with you. You're giving them advice. You're giving them financial advice. All the different areas that these people are experts in: markets, shares, the dynamics within companies, management structure, all this kind of stuff. They know this kind of business very, very well. It's the ball game that they play. They're out to be successful, make big money, get a good reputation, run a company. They may not necessarily be there for the money completely. They're interested in status, success, recognition, all the rest of it. But she said outright that once these people, they need to get to know you. There's no way in the world they're going to lay down a couple of $1 million, $5 million with you unless they've got full confidence in you. And she said the level of trust, what's the right words? They really need to feel that they can trust you, and that you have got their best interests at heart. And that principle of trust and confidence is actually more important than the money itself. She said when that person feels that they can trust, when the client feels that they can really, really trust you, and you really know exactly what you're talking about. You won't fool people like business clients like this. They're very, very smart, capable people. They know. They're experts in this area. And if you're an investment advisor, you really need to have an understanding which can match or outperform these people when it comes to markets and investments and whatnot. But she said that's the bottom line. She said when these people have your trust and confidence, they will lay down $5 million like that, in a very, very short space of time. And she said that principle is actually more important than the money. But these dynamics are a little bit tricky as well, because you can have a situation where the children, 2 sons and the daughter, so dad was a managing director, had 3 companies in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, wanted the children to take over, but because dad was so focused on work with the companies, he must have been working absolute minimum 12, 14 hours, almost, at least 6 days a week, if not more, that the children, because they didn't have much contact with their father at all when they were young, they really wanted nothing to do with the company. Dad had high expectations. They didn't even see their father half the time, and that just really, really put them off the dynamics. And he was close to retirement. He wanted the children to take over, and they didn't want anything to do with it because that the money and the business and the work and everything else, it took their father away from them. It almost like robbed them of their childhood. So they had wanted nothing to do with it. So, it's just a little example. So dad can, the parents could be wealthy, powerful, this and that. There can be, millions and millions, potentially millions of dollars available if you want to take that on. But if you're smart enough, you're intuitive enough, and you get burnt with this kind of experience, you may not necessarily go that way. But the thing is as well, so with perfectionism, is it really realistic? No matter whatever you think, you can be a perfectionist. No matter what you think, or no matter what mum and dad expect of you. I mean, is it reality based? Can you perform? Can you do what you say? It's like, can you walk the talk? It's like, that young man who was in that cafe, that high class cafe, just before I took my mum to a neurological appointment. I mean, he just sounded, just fantastic. He sounded like he really knew his stuff, could go into fine detail in so many areas. But the thing is, how successful is his own company? How much money is he making? What kind of reputation does he have? So as many of you understand, people can say anything. They can say anything, but you've got to be able to walk the talk. Because people will see very, very clearly if you have that kind of potential. So is the perfection reality based? Both internally and externally. And the thing is that the perfectionism, it's going to put pressure on you. You're going to put pressure on yourself, and possibly family. Parents are going to put maybe excessive pressure on you that you don't really want and you don't really need. My attitude is with children is you bring out you try to lead the child in a wholesome direction, and you bring out the best in the child, but you don't use excessive force and manipulation and control with the child, because they'll fight you. It doesn't, you can what's the right words? Even with my father, my father put so much emphasis with my brother about, things like, financial security and buying a home and investments and all this kind of stuff. My father's been doing it for probably well over 30 years, but I didn't go that way, and neither did my brother. My brother, even after all the stuff that my father conveyed, and even after all the advice that he gave, both of us, I didn't go that way. My brother ended up in a rental in Campbelltown, 30 years later. So you can't force your kids on an ultimate level, and some children, some sons and daughters, if you really push the envelope too far, they'll just walk away from you, and they'll move out of home. They may minimize the contact. All this kind of principle. No one wants to be sort of pressured, manipulated excessively. My mentality is just bring out the best in your child, whatever capabilities that they have, because you know them from the day they're born. You know their strengths and weaknesses. Bring out their best and let them make their own decisions. My friend, he's got 2 older daughters, younger son. So with mum and dad being school teachers, he wants his kids. They're young adults now, to have a comprehensive education, a comprehensive understanding of life. He wanted both his daughters to travel through the US, through Europe. He made sure he gave them advice, when it comes to money, safety, traveling with different people, because he'd already done that several times over. But he knew, he had an understanding of just what he gained, the wealth of knowledge, cultural experience, meeting different people. He thought it was fantastic, and I think he must have gone through Europe at least several times, I don't think he went through he didn't go through the US, but his youngest daughter, she went right through the US, Europe. She worked, in both countries, and so for him, he felt it was quite valuable. But when it came to things like religion, he would allow, even though he was a practicing Christian, he would allow the two daughters and the sons to choose which religion they wanted to practice. Mum and dad are quite spacious. They're not like fundamentalists. They're not really like firmly fixed with their views and opinions. Because the thing is, if you're a religious person, you need to be flexible to a minimum degree. Otherwise, it's going to bring you into conflict with others. You'll end up what's the right word? Coming into, say, differences, possibly maybe say minor conflict on different issues, because you can't bend, you can't flex. It's like it's like you want to do things your way. You have certain beliefs. You think and feel that your way is the best way, and it's not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how capable you are, how much knowledge you've got. You can be just amazing across the board, but it doesn't mean that you're right. And some people can prove you wrong very, very easily if they had to. So what's the debate? Perfectionism and acceptance. So say for example, if I get this right, the person didn't clarify completely. You're a perfectionist, but how do you develop an acceptance if you've got that kind of personality? Well, in essence, that you're going to, if you want to control, if you have high expectations, you want to control. If you believe things should be a certain way, you're really fighting an uphill battle. You can have a very strong ego, very, very strong views and opinions, but it's going to make you suffer, and it really doesn't make any difference what you think and what you feel, because you're just one person. You're just one person in this room with 60 practitioners. Like even in the monastery, I don't, even though I'm second in the line, I don't force my views and opinions on other people. I just, if I need to talk something over, you can share views and opinions, but the bottom line is the second person, they have to make their own decisions, possibly for better or worse. If you know they're moving in the wrong direction, you may have to spell it out, quite clearly. But the whole thing with perfectionism, it's going to create problems for you. The kind of person who goes through life and is able to weather the ups and downs of life is a person who has a degree of say, like emotional and psychological flexibility. It's like the nurses that I meet, or even say carers to a degree, who tend to be people persons. They're able to get along with the vast range of people in general society. One thing I see very, 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 very quickly with nurses, when I meet nurses at funerals, at Balmoral, with my mother's currently living, just out in the general community, nurses have an ability to basically get along. Not in every case, but a very high number within their fraternity. They're able to get along with the broad range of different people without struggle, and it's the ability to flex, it's the ability to communicate, it's the ability to look at things in different ways. Because if you have a very, very fixed, very, very strong perspective on life, you're going to basically you're going to run into trouble again and again and again. Because life is not going to give you what you want. people are not going to give you what you want. They're not going to, they're not going to live up to your personal expectations and whatnot. But so with the acceptance, so I'm a perfectionist. How do I develop that sense of acceptance? That's same thing. Flexibility. Having, you can be super smart, but you can still have this tram track type of vision. But the more you know, the more comprehensive your knowledge base, the greater your emotional intelligence will give you a more an ability to move and bend and flex with your personal experience on a day-to-day basis. So, and it's one thing I've seen time and time again. When it comes to the human population, perfectionists tend to suffer the most because life is not going to give you what you want most of the time. And so that the acceptance is having, you can be intelligent, sharp, capable, but it's like you have the big mind principle. You've got that spacious mind which can accommodate many different kinds of views and opinions. You can look at things in many different perspectives. You're open to opinions, to ideas. You've got the ability to explore different avenues, maybe courses and directions. As I mentioned quite a while ago, both in Australia and America, this is an article which was written that senior management, put more emphasis on people with emotional intelligence than just raw brain power. Let's see now. The young woman who was running that investment management team, she had a young man come onto the what's the right words? Come onto the team. He was super smart, really, almost brilliant, and very sharp, incredible knowledge base, understanding of dynamics, this and that. But he wasn't able to communicate with other people very well, and she saw it quite quickly. She was a meditator. She's she meditated every day. So the emotional, super smart, but the emotional intelligence was very pronounced, and she could see within days that this young man just was not connecting with the clients, at all. And after about the third day, she took him aside privately, and she said, "Michael," she said, "I can," it was completely private conversation. No one else got to see or know until much later. But she said, "I can see that you're not able to really to connect with the clients with eye contact and the ability to connect and all the rest of it." And she says, like, what's happening? Like, can you tell me exactly what's going on? And she got him to basically open up and tell her exactly what was going on. And Mum and Dad, who were professionals, high-class professionals, had pushed their son into business school. It was the best say business school, I think, here in Perth. I don't know the exact dynamics. Just assume the best business school here in Perth. He had outstanding results with his business course right across the range, like honours. Honours. What's the right word that they use? Distinctions, honours, right across all these subjects. Outstanding, super smart. But Mum pushed him in this direction, so he ends up in business and finance. He didn't really want to be there. She could see it, quite quickly. But what he really wanted to do was to become a veterinarian. He loved animals more than he loved people. And so he essentially, he just, after she talked things over, I mean, because her understanding was and what's the right word, the advice that she gave him was quite good. She said, like Michael, she said, if that is really what you want to do on the heart level, she said, that's exactly the direction you should go. And so he left the company, and she saw him about, I think, let's see, veterinarian degree's got to be at least 4 years. I think it's got to be about 4 years, I think. 3's too little, probably say 4 years. And he did very, very well, and he was working with a high-class team here in Perth, and was very, very happy, and just loved working with the animals, and he had a much better rapport, got along much better with animals than human beings. So, it's just another little example. So I better get along and get on to the questions and answers. So what are we doing now? Chanting. Oh, do you want to? It's okay. Okay, it's no problem. We can do chanting. Yeah, well, sorry, I didn't want to. I mean, you guys might be okay. I mean, I'm not tired. I can just keep going. But put my spectacles on. Yeah, it's quite funny. Even though I've been talking, I basically don't feel tired at all. I could barely. I was able to sleep last night. I was awake after 4 hours, and even when I had the nap this afternoon, I couldn't sleep at all. Which, it's just quite funny. Even when you're talking Dhamma, it's that energy principle. If you guys did the same, you would notice. Even if you're talking Dhamma, talking about practice with your friends, you will see that as well. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look. Look. Let's have a look. So we haven't got a big. Let's have a look at the back. Let's have a look. Yes, there's a dedication. Nothing. All right. Yeah, we haven't got a vast selection, so okay. Preliminary homage to the Triple Gem. To the Blessed One, the Lord, who fully attained. Oh, sorry, page 9. Towards the front. Are you all okay? I've got my reading glasses on, so I can't see so well. Yep. Well, it's not so much fun. I mean, many of we've got some raw beginners. It's not so fantastic if I do it in Pali because they haven't got a clue what I'm saying. So I'd rather do it in English. To the Blessed One, the Lord, who fully attained perfect enlightenment, to the teaching which he expounded so well, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. To these, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we render with offerings our rightful homage. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, still had compassion for later generations. May these simple offerings be accepted for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. The teachings so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma, the Blessed One discipled who have practiced well. I bow to the Sangha. Homage to the Blessed, Noble and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed, Noble and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed, Noble and perfectly enlightened One. The Blessed One is the Arahant, the perfectly enlightened One. He is impeccable in conduct and understanding, the accomplished One, the knower of the worlds. He trains perfectly those who wish to be trained. He is teacher of gods and humans. He is awake and holy. I chant my praise to the Blessed One. I bow my head to the Blessed One. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, relating to this very life, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading to liberation, to be personally experienced by the wise. I chant my praise to this teaching. I bow my head to this truth. They are the Blessed One discipled who have practiced well, who have practiced directly, who have practiced insightfully, those who practice with integrity, that is the 4 pairs, the 8 kinds of noble beings. These are the Blessed One disciples. Such ones are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. They are the unsurpassed field of merit for the world. I chant my praise to this Sangha. I bow my head to this Sangha. Ajahn Appiccato, can you please say more about the spacious mind? Thank you for a wonderful retreat. I'm glad that things are going so well for you so early. You're off to a good start. Okay. Say more about the spacious mind. Okay, so that spacious mind. All right, so we're talking about the personal experience. You've got a spacious mind, so how does that feel? So some of you, if I bring in a couple of points, that dark color meditation, that's quite it's quite a good practice. It's very good for for beginner meditators. For say for example, if the mind's excessively busy, if there's a lot of stuff happening, they just can't get calm. Focusing on that neutral, that dark space, that dark color, which is very, very difficult to connect to anything. It's so neutral. It's very difficult to connect with any thoughts, feelings, physical body. It's quite detached. That's quite very, very useful with that spacious mind principle. But in essence, the spacious mind comes about, the less and less and less you think, the more and more space you will develop within the mind. So, you'll definitely, you're going to go over time, and depending on how skillful you are with different practices, you're going to see that sense of space, the openness, that sense of emptiness, the sense of space increasing as the months and the years go by. And sometimes, especially the first, say, minimum 5, more like, say 7 years. I was very lucky. I was able to get peaceful relatively quickly, quite early in the monk's life. And you can have many quite interesting experiences until the mind really starts to get really calm and really like stable. Fairly, with this thinking process really starts to really drop down. But you can have some really interesting experiences, like different kinds of perceptions and different kind of mind states, where you may feel that your mind is like you're looking. Just what it feels like when you look out into the universe. That's what it feels when you look into your own mind. That kind of space, endless space. With not much to contact, when the mind gets very, very quiet, no thoughts to contact, and things like your consciousness feels like an atom, maybe on top of. Let me think get this right. Your consciousness feels like the kind of the dimensions an atom takes up inside, like a huge mountain. So you're focused on your meditation object, and it's the level of attention is like an atom compared to the size of a huge mountain. Things like you feel that you might be rising up into space. You may feel that your attention is inside this physical body, and is on the point of a pin. And your mind, your body is just like open space. So you can get all sorts of different experiences, which can be quite interesting, and you should always use for reflection with Dhamma, with practice. Because these experiences, they bring you information, they bring you understanding. You're starting to see the way the mind works, the roadmap of the mind as you move into deeper meditation as the years go by. But it's definitely that the spacious mind, incredibly useful. Even in you can have this spacious mind, but many good qualities will come out of this spacious mind that you will see in your personal experience on a day-to-day basis. Ajahn, thank you for your insights and wisdom so far in this retreat. Would you like to hear your guidance for the overthinking mind, please? So the overthinking mind is largely, as many of you know, largely driven by emotion. So when you've got a person who's as cool as a cucumber, emotionally, you will be able to basically shut that mind down within a very, very reasonable time frame. So all these things aren't when I'm talking, what I say is not absolute. If I'm talking about the Buddha's teaching, it's got to be very, very precise and very, very accurate. You can't make mistakes with this kind of thing. But when it comes to Dhamma, there's a degree of flexibility, because every single one of us are different. The parami, the past karma. So what I say works very, very well. Works very well for me. I can give people tools. I can give them advice, but in order to fine-tune your practice for the best possible results, you have to actually see that within oneself. Because people, from one person to another, we're all very, very, very complicated. when it comes to you're looking at thousands of past lives. It's usually the last couple of lives which have and especially the last life is the most significant. So, but to give you an idea, this is what I do. But you still need to be just a little bit careful. This is a monk's practice, and I've already mentioned this with several of the retreatants. If you want to see good results, this is what I do. This is as I mentioned with some of the ladies, the soft and fluffy approach. This is why I keep pushing this anicca principle again and again and again. Do the soft and fluffy practices. Focus on natural things. Say, for example, that you see in the world, the natural things that you see inside the mind. Do that initially. So the whole thing with one of the ladies mentioned that when she did that anicca principle on feeling, she felt this very strong, unpleasant emotion like rising up. So that particular area, focusing on feeling, on emotional feeling, basically triggered like a release of energy, emotional energy, and wasn't a very nice experience at all. So she may need to put her attention. You can still maintain that anicca principle, but you put it on things like flowers and leaves, and it could be anything, like little insects, and like user-friendly, non-confrontational kind of perspectives on different areas. It's the kind of stuff you have to feel it out. When I give you a technique that I know is very, very solid, you have to experiment with it, and you have to see if it works for you. You can fine-tune, you can change things, because in essence, in the long term, you don't want to waste time. You don't want to be practicing for a couple. After several years, the meditation should. This is only my perspective only, but if you really know what you're doing, it should be reasonable. Reasonable after a minimum, say 2 or 3 years. You should feel it's not bad. It's okay. So, all right, so getting back without losing the plot, you do the soft and fluffy stuff, which you feel comfortable with. You do it one of these mantras at a time initially. If you feel comfortable with it, then you go the full range. As I mentioned with one of the ladies, you go the full range of changeability with things like flowers, leaves, things like the weather, temperature, wind pressure, direction, all the different facets that you see in the natural world, which will not provoke a strong response in the mind. It's natural, it's non-confrontational, and then, but if you guys still don't get peaceful with that kind of approach, then you go to the body, and this is where, and this is why the Buddha, where I don't want to annoy people by repeating certain things over and over again, but this is absolutely crucial. The Buddhas are the wisest beings in the universe, and when it comes to the monk's ordination, for the novice ordination, and especially the novice ordination into the community, he teaches the contemplation of the 5 external component parts of the body, and he teaches that meditation at the ordination when the monks take on, when the Anagarikas actually take on robes as novices. So when the Buddha does that's a really, really big deal. And with the meditation, you will see exactly why that's the reason. If you guys can't get peaceful, if you do the soft and fluffy stuff, you do it very, very lightly, and then you do it more deeply and more comprehensively, with many, many different facets on natural, user-friendly type of principles in the natural world, or the stuff that you see inside the mind. It could be even an example could be like relationships. Are changeable in say feeling tone, it could be anything. I'm no expert, but just imagine the 4 facets of certain things which are important to you, which have meaning to you, user-friendly, you're comfortable, you're emotionally comfortable as you examine and explore. And so what we're doing there, with the soft and fluffy, we're largely working with the mind. Even though we're working externally, we're still working with the mind to a degree. And if you still can't get peaceful with that, then you go to the body. You start with the beginning level, just one mantra: head, hair, body, hair, nails, teeth, skin. Just one. It could be teeth, skin, or nails. You do that one little mantra, big spaces between the words, breathing and walking meditation, and you do it for a full hour. And if you still don't get peaceful with that, because I do this stuff for hours and hours every day, and I don't get any negativity, even though I'm really doing it excessively. I still don't get any trouble with this. I mean, it took me a while. It took me a couple of weeks to really get it rolling, and I had like nightmares for about 3 weeks, almost every night, which showed the degree of resistance there was, like inside the mind. My underlying makeup didn't like it so much, but it's the best results I have ever seen, regardless of circumstances. So you do one mantra, and you do it for at least an hour, 2 hours if you want to be absolutely sure. If you still can't get the mind settled, then you do all 5: head, hair, body, hair, nails, teeth, skin, 5 mantras, slowly, relaxed, one after another, over and over and over again for 1 or 2 hours. And if you can't get peaceful with that, I'd be absolutely amazed, because if you go to that point, then and if you still can't get peaceful with that, then you go to the maximum. You go right through the physical body. You go the 32 parts of the body here, the lungs, the heart, the spleen, pancreas, bladder, skeleton, absolutely everything that the Buddha made quite clear with the instruction. But when you go to that point, you've got to be very, very careful. You do it for 5 minutes, but the warning signs will be if you start to see strong anger, hatred, revenge, you've got to stop right there, because it's really the suppression effect. You're putting too much pressure on too quickly, and the underlying energies in the mind, the defilements in the mind, are telling you that you're putting excessive pressure on, and it's not good. It's not good for you. So you may have to stay, say, like with the 5, those five principles. You may have to make some slight changes. I don't expect you guys to have a firm grasp on. I've been doing this for well over 1 3/4, 2 years now, so I've got a good grasp on it. But you should see results, absolutely no doubt. But you still, when you go into the body, you've got to make sure when you're looking at that kind of extreme approach. You've got to have pictures of anatomically of the heart, the liver, lungs, and this and that, to really make that big one, that 32 parts, to make it work. You've got to be able to visualize stuff. And if I do things like the heart is changeable, my heart, it's actually there in front of me, and it's there all the time. I can do it for 4 hours straight, and my physical heart is there in my mind's eye for 4 hours without break. All of you can do this without difficulty, no doubt whatsoever. And I don't feel any sense of disgust. I don't feel any negativity whatsoever. I have no problem with other people, any kind of aversion on any level. I feel, to be quite honest, I feel quite positive, happy. I get along with people. I don't have any sense of disgust. But it's because I know how to work with this stuff. You guys, if you take it to that level, because you may be very, very committed meditators, you need to be a little bit careful with it. Dear Ajahn, could you please talk more about insight into, say, unreliability, impermanence, anicca leading to peace? So with the anicca principle, the reason, impermanence, anicca, The reason why it works for you with in practice, as I've mentioned, that the whole universe, the whole power of the universe, the forces and energies, the planets, the suns, the moons, are all controlled and affected and regulated by natural law. So we think to ourselves, can you imagine that? Like we're standing on this little planet of ours, we're looking out into the cosmos, and can you imagine the power which moves the moons around Jupiter and Saturn? Can you I'm not being silly when I say this, but can you really fathom the incredible power and forces which move the moons around those planets? Have you really thought about this? I'm not being condescending, but it's an incredible thing. It's an amazing thing, and so this kind of that principle is not to be, underestimated. At all. The whole universe, the whole cosmos, is based on that principle. That principle the principle of change, and that principle change comes about through all those forces and energies acting on elements, on those atoms, and on those molecules according to natural law. We don't see those laws of nature with our own eyes at this point, because we haven't realized the Buddha's teaching to its, say, full depth and penetration when it, to the Enlightenment experience, the 4 levels of enlightenment with the Buddha's teaching. When you attain to that level, you will see the laws of nature which regulate this universe, and the laws of nature which affect this mind and body with your own eyes, through that pure mind, with the mind of the Buddha. The enlightenment experience is exactly that. Experience of enlightenment is exactly the same for all people, all beings, from human beings right up through the Devas to the Brahma gods, to the highest heaven worlds. It's exactly the same. But there are differences in the levels of insight and the levels of psychic power which come from that enlightenment attainment, because you're looking at differences in faculties actually inside the man, parami, past life development. It's not the same from one person to the next. So even though that anicca principle may sound quite simplistic, you may think it's almost like child's play. It's not to be underestimated, because the Buddha made it very clear. He said, with the monks and nuns who are supposed to be living this life correctly, he said, this is your work, the meditation and the contemplation of anicca, dukkha, anatta. This is what you're supposed to be doing as a primary principle. So when you explore the anicca principle, is much easier to work with than emptiness. The vast majority of us haven't got a clue about emptiness, and I'm not being facetious when I say this. It's just a reality principle. Unless you get incredibly deep states of meditation, then you'll see the emptiness principle within the jhanas. Or if you have a sustained samadhi nimitta, then you'll have an initial understanding of what emptiness is. And then as you move through the jhanas, you deeper, more profound stages of emptiness, from first jhana through to, say, Nirodha Samapatti, the most advanced level of say, peacefulness in the mind. So even though that anicca principle sounds quite basic, may sound, I wouldn't say like child play. It's when you're doing this for months and years on end, it has a sense of depth to it, because that anicca principle, as simplistic as it is, it's like the trunk of a tree. It connects to everything. So it's like the web. Say for example, if I type something, say for example the word Zen, I type one word into the web, and then that word just branches off, and you're getting a massive amount of, what would you call it, connecting links in relation with the practice of Zen that all you guys are familiar with. You know, you could have, I'm only guessing, maybe at least a dozen or even 20 links just based on that principle alone. So that principle of changeability will branch off and connect with so many other things, because it is impregnated right throughout the cosmos. And the reason it leads to peace is because you're constantly emphasizing over and over again this ultimate principle which basically controls and regulates this universe. We're just like little ants. We're like little ants running across the surface of this planet. You know, we may think, you know, we're so important and this and that, and our lives, you know, have possibly could have incredible significance. You may be doing fantastic things in worldly life. It's definitely not to be underestimated whatsoever. But when we look at the scale of the universe, we are absolutely nothing. We are like dust on the surface of this earth. And if I died tonight, if any of you guys died tonight, it wouldn't really make that much difference at all. You know, when it comes to the state of this world or the state of the universe, the state of the solar system, my life means absolutely nothing. The lives of every single one of us here on the level of the solar system means absolutely nothing. And I'm not being funny or weird when I say this. Okay. When I feel a physical blockage in my body, how can I let go of this blockage through meditation? It feels like it's my body's way of telling me that I need to focus on a particular issue. I know some people have healed themselves with the power of the mind. Okay, so what I would do, say for example, if I had something happening with my physical body, I had a pain, I had a pain. I had discomfort. Maybe just say for example, if I had an aching sensation in my heart chakra, that location, center of the chest, my heart chakra, I had this just ache going on for weeks or months, because my problem is here. I don't need to look outside myself initially. This is where the problem is. This is where you need to focus. So, you know, that book called Focusing by Eugene D. Gelon will make you an expert with this kind of practice, and it's a book which is well worth looking at. She was an American psychotherapist, but she used this specific meditation technique to help unlock and release energies which are trapped in the physical body. So I've got this aching sensation in my heart chakra. How do I work with this? So very, very, very gently. This is what, in a nutshell, this is the gist of the teaching in her book. But she's much more comprehensive. She gives case studies. She goes into detail. You know, this and that. It's a book like this. But the gist of it is that I have this experience, and I don't really know what it is. I don't really know what it's connected with, and I don't really understand what's going on. So what I do is to focus in this area, and the reason I do this is because my body, I can't work it out. I don't really understand what's going on. Up top intellectually or even cerebrally or even psychologically, because we're just so complicated as people. We're so complicated emotionally. your body, when you get stuff like this, unpleasant sensations in the physical body which just don't disappear after a couple of days, your body is telling you there's something wrong, and your body, compared to your mind, won't, it won't lie to you to the same extent that you can lie to yourself on a psychological or emotional level. So you're focusing here, you focus for 1 minute, and then you start to question. So this is where the problem is. I put my attention very, very gently. I'm just watching and watching. Then after 60 seconds, I stop, and then I start exploring. I go to just a basic understanding. What is this feeling I have? It's an aching, unpleasant, constant, nagging sensation. And then once I've exhausted the first inquiry, then I focus again on the feeling, very, very gently, very relaxed, for a second time, for 60 seconds. And then after that, then I explore a bit more deeply. How's this feeling affecting my physical body? What's it connected with? It's affecting my physical body. What is this thing connected with? And then I explore it a second time. So I take it as deep as I go into it. I take it as deeply as I can. Then I focus, and then I take it as deeply as I can, and then I focus a third time for another 60 seconds. And then I explore a third time. So I keep going back and forth, until I reach the point where I feel a sense of release or catharsis, like an unburdening. This problem is starting to lift, the feeling is starting to lift, and I can see quite clearly that there's been like a turning point, and there's some resolution. Just initially, I can see initially there's some kind of resolution with this this problem here, and so in a nutshell, that's what she does. But she goes into much more detail. But it makes perfect sense because, I've seen people who've been in psychotherapy with very, very good quality therapists, even for 20 years, 25 years, and the therapist, as good as they are, still cannot resolve the person's issues because the issues are too deep, they're too complicated, the therapist can't reach the stuff, it's too deep. They don't really understand exactly what's happening because they don't understand karma. You can have stuff coming from past lives. You can have injuries from past lives, especially the last life, say the last life, and it plays out on the physical body, this second physical body in the current life. So I could have a major injury. There could be heavy emotional emotions involved with some major injury the last life, and because I can't let go, the injury and the emotional connection gets played out. It gets played out again a second time, with the body I have now in the current life. So definitely check that book out. You'll have a grasp on that technique in 7 days flat. It's very, very very user friendly, and it won't cost you a cent. It'll only cost you $16 to $17 for the electronic. It's by Eugene D. Jelen, and the book is called Focusing, and the front cover of her book is Large Pebbles Underwater. You'll find it in a flash. You type it in, it'll come up straight away. I am searching the meditation practice to separate mind and body. Please tell me how. That's really a big one. If you want to separate mind and body, you really need like really deep meditation. the bottom line is you've got to, as I mentioned, you've got to have a samadhi nimitta, either the light nimitta. Everyone has that incredible happiness, the piti sukha. So when you get, some of you, I don't want to get overly complicated with the Pali terms, but when many, probably maybe at least 50%, if not more, will have the light, will have that beautiful radiant light like the sun inside your mind. But a genuine nimitta, a sustained nimitta, the light nimitta, will be much brighter. The way they explain it will be much brighter than the sun that you see with your eyes in broad daylight. It's much more brilliant, it's more pure, it's white, radiant. The whole mind is filled with light. And you've got to reach that point when you're talking about separating mind and body, where your attention moves in from the physical body with its five senses, and it moves into the mind. The samadhi nimitta, when it's sustained like that, is a clear indication you're right on the boundaries of actually moving into the mind experience, into the universe of the mind. And it's a bit of a what would you call it? It's a bit of a tall order, but it's the same thing as well. The meditation. It's got to be really deep, not just pleasant or nice. It's got to be like really profound at that level. Eventually, if you're practicing, I mean, some of you may have very good past parami, past life development, and it's the potential for you to have this. There's no doubt that some of you guys will definitely have this, and only you can know. If you explain it, if you explained it to me, I would understand. I mean, immediately. And even with your friends, your Dhamma friends, if any of you guys have had that experience, and one of the lay practitioners explained that to you, you would know exactly what they're talking about, because the dynamics, when you reach that point, the dynamics, the way the mind works, it's almost exactly the same. Once you reach that point, because you're looking at a pure state of consciousness, and the dynamics are so refined, you can't make mistakes with this kind of thing. When you explain it to someone, they know exactly what you're talking about, because it's almost identical from one person to another, regardless of if it's young, old, male, female, cultural background. They can be an incredible, incredible fundamental Christian practitioner, but that state of mind will be virtually exactly the same as the Buddhist practitioners. But the bottom line is expertise. In a nutshell, it all comes down to spiritual work. What you've done previously, past lives, especially the previous life, and what you're doing now. It's the amount of work that you're putting in, and it's the level of skill with the meditation which makes the difference. How to forgive a parent who did not do nice things to me during childhood. All right, so for example, I have to put myself in other people's shoes to really sort of feel it out. All right, say for example, if I had an alcoholic father who was angry, abusive, threatening, threatened my mum, sometimes beat my mum, and threatened me and my sisters. Where we were just like scared. Little kids. Sometimes you would knock mum around, threaten the children. How do you forgive a parent like that? And the thing is that particular gentleman, that particular parent, when he was young, himself, his own father was an alcoholic. And this man that I'm talking about is also a person who drinks heavily and could not stop drinking. I'm not an expert on this thing, but they say one of the character traits of an alcoholic is a person who cannot stop. They can't stop. It's one of the features. So that particular gentleman, his own father was an alcoholic, and also used to beat him, used to threaten and beat him when he was a boy. And then that gentleman that I know now went on to become an alcoholic, and also threatened his own family and knocked his, would beat his wife, not to like bash her like really badly, but like would slap her around and give her a slap, and would definitely maybe leave her with maybe a bruise, but he wouldn't just beat her to the point where you had to bring the police in, and incredibly really serious. But he would threaten the wife and the children every time he was drinking. And I just gave him a phone call, went to talk to his son. He's a friend of my brother's and I, and he just started. He's got this problem with young men, and he started. He got quite angry. Started threatening, making accusations on the phone. He thought I was basically trying to take him for a fool, and I was trying to be a smart aleck. And I was talking to him quite politely, but he's got this very nasty streak inside him, which comes from his own dad, and he's just repeating what his own father did to him with his current family. But I mean, without sidetracking too much, how do I forgive a parent? If I had a dad like that, how do I forgive them? The person, essentially, is they are a victim of circumstance. This is just one perspective only. They are a victim of circumstance. So if they didn't have that abusive father themselves, they may have been and they didn't have that drinking problem, they may be quite a reasonable person. Very, 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 very likely. When I talk about this, it's not foolproof. There's no way I can see inside that person's mind, and there's no way I can know exactly with this person's experience. But the bottom line is that the person is and you can argue the point, is a victim of conditioning. The father, the alcoholism, the family dynamics. Sometimes things aren't working. The husband and wife don't necessarily get along so well. So the father gets angry, frustrated, what would you call it, discontent. When he's drinking, he starts getting nasty. So the person, all of us, the word that the Buddha said over and over again in the sutras, that we are conditioned as beings. Our mind, our physical body is shaped by karma. And this is why we see the differences between, say, from one human being to the next. This is an underlying principle. So Dad, look at when I see my dad, I was dead lucky. I had a very good quality parents, but say for example, he's a victim. He's a victim of circumstances. He is a product of his own karma. So, born to that abusive father, within that family, within that particular family, in a certain time and place. These things do not happen by accident. Karma is incredibly precise. It's like a laser beam. So what's the right words? So the whole scenario, father and son. It's meant to be. It's karma, which basically orchestrates and shapes the events, and they take place for very specific reasons. Not just some kind of blasé, maybe this, maybe that kind of stuff. it's incredibly precise. There are very, you get what, I'm not being nasty when I say this, but whatever, what happens with you in your life, it's like fate to a degree. It's meant to be. There's a reason why you have this mind, you have this physical body, you have the friends that you have. You're born into a specific family. You get cancer at 16, 17 years of age, or you're only at 7 or 8 years of age. You have a massive, you're only a child. You have one of the vessels blows out in your brain, and you die in ICU. So this is very, very serious stuff. But there's very precise reasons why this happens. Some people think, oh my God, this is such a tragedy. This child is innocent. How can this happen? How can a lady? She was out in the backyard with the puppy dog. She tripped. It was either, I think she tripped over a hose. The puppy dog was she was playing with the dog, but for some reason she got distracted, tripped over a hose. She was on the grass. When she came down, cracked her skull, her frontal, the frontal part of her head on the cement, and it led to a major cerebral bleed, and she ended up in ICU, and the damage was extensive. It was very, very, very serious. Poor lady. She was only, the children were young. The children were only, maybe 8 and 5, 2 kids, and mum must have been, she was definitely under 40. And the poor family, the son, the kids were completely confused. They didn't even know how to feel. The mum's on life support, and we're going to basically be, not me, but the doctors are going to be turning off the life support within maybe 30 minutes. And I'm doing the final process with the family, with the guidance and the chanting and the blessing and everything I need to do before the life support is switched off. But oh boy, you can just imagine. And all she did was just trip over a garden hose. So there's reasons. Well, that's why you've got to be so careful. It's like the monks tend to be careful, because you've got the rule structure, and especially Karma as well. You tend to be careful with what you do, but don't ever underestimate the potential of the direction that you take, the things you do, the intentions you have, and the way you move in the course of your life. With people, even if you have trouble with people, just be very, very careful. Don't make trouble with them unless it's absolutely necessary. Don't antagonize people. Don't provoke them. Don't try to get revenge on them, because you'll get whacked. It's like all these things, they just come full circle. So people think, oh, you're soft and weak. You don't stand up and fight and this and that. I don't have to. I see what happens to people, and it's quite obvious to me, and I know the reasons why. I don't have to waste my time attacking and fighting other people. They always get whacked in the end. Okay, does repeating a mantra disturb the peace of the mind when trying to settle all thoughts and obtain silence? For me, I find, this is only me, I find it quite spacious and relaxing, because I do this stuff all the time, hours every day, thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And for me, it's quite relaxing. But for you guys, you may find it quite disturbing. It interrupts whatever peace that you have. So you have to feel it out. If you may need a mantra formulation, and I keep emphasizing, and I encourage the anicca principle in whatever way is comfortable for you. to get the initial calm and some stability. But once, if you feel that that the mantra is disturbing whatever peace that you've got, just drop the mantra and stay with the peace. And if you're able to, put your attention on the most peaceful part of the mind. And so draw your attention to that most peaceful space in the mind, and emphasize and make it strong and make it increase and increase and increase in size and scope. And you may find that quite interesting if you develop that as a skill. It may take a little bit of time for you to get to that point, but if you develop it as a skill, you may be quite pleased with the results. And I always recommend that dark color meditation. It's a good one. It's the best one I've seen, especially for beginners to intermediates. And I don't do this one a lot, but it was quite obvious to me, and it's the easiest way to get that initial peacefulness. Because I know one gentleman, he was practicing the breath meditation for 10 years. He couldn't get results. It just couldn't get peaceful. One of our ladies, who's a long-term practitioner, retreat practitioner, still felt she hadn't got good results with the breath meditation, and I mentioned the same thing again. So you may need certain techniques to bridge you. Sometimes these techniques are satisfactory. Sometimes you need to use these techniques to bridge to other techniques which can take you deeper. It's something you have to experiment and feel it out. Venerable Ajahn, could you please talk about life after death? Thank you. As a Dhamma talk. Okay, life after death. Maybe I'll make this one a Dhamma talk. Life after death. Yeah, because it's a big one. There's a few examples. From my personal experience, I've found 40 to 45 minutes mark in meditation has great impact throughout the day. Yep, 40 to 45 minutes is pretty solid. Most people it usually takes about 30 minutes, depends on the person, to get a reasonable state. To give you an example, when you're looking at personality, one of the very, very solid Western monks who came from Thailand, his perspective, and you're talking about solid meditation, not so much surface level, but he would walk meditation for an hour, and he had good meditation, and he said then he was ready to sit meditation after that point. So he would get the initial calm, then he would sit with the breath meditation, and then he saw really good quality practice from that point on, because most of us are exactly the same. You need at least 1 to 2 hours to get a good to even see some decent practice. Some people may need 3 to 4 hours, but it all depends how much time you've got. Does the duration sessions per day will impact our mindfulness? What has worked for other lay people? So 40-45 is quite strong, and I would definitely recommend that one mantra per minute to get that, to have that anchor. So for 18 hours a day, you've got that one mantra per minute. Can be any word which is important to you, every 60 seconds, all your waking hours. And so when you go to sit meditation at some point in the day or evening, that you've already got some background tranquility. You don't have to keep moving back through all the daily events and the experiences and the conversations and the work, one's personal work, stuff with the family. Because many of us are like that. We have to go back through all this stuff, the conversations, this and that, even before we can get some reasonable peacefulness. And so by that one mantra per minute will give you the anchor. It's like that, the simile of the boat on the ocean. with a very, very long, very, very long anchor down to the seabed, and then your boat can only drift so far, can only move so far north, south, east, and west, and then when you go to sit meditation, you don't have to struggle so much. You don't have to put in so much effort, because the background of samadhi, it's there, it's all the time. It's there all your waking hours. It's there when you're sleeping. If you get and you know for a fact, if you get very beautiful dream states and the recollection's very strong, the color, the time, the place, the events, the conversations with other people in the dream state, the sensory awareness, the emotional awareness is very, very strong. That means that the samadhi is there in the background, because the recollection, the attention to detail is quite distinct, and that's one of the characteristics of good samadhi, which is carried in to your dream world. What are the qualities of the 8 kinds of noble beings? So that, it's quite a big, it's a reasonably large topic, but from what I've seen, in a nutshell, the main principles is, say at the beginner's level. If I bring it down, because it does get quite complicated, but if I bring it down to the 4 enlightenment stages, especially the beginners, the Pali, you may not necessarily know the Pali, so I don't want to blind you with science. But for the person who's requesting, the Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arahant. So you're looking at 4 enlightenment stages. You're looking at 4 levels of purification of the mind. So the first level, Sotapanna, let's see, the 3 principles, I haven't checked it for quite some time. They have absolutely, these principles are foolproof. You see them when I talk about these principles, you see them, and they are rock solid and fixed in every single level of enlightenment, of the enlightenment experiences. The Sotapanna has absolutely no doubt whatsoever about the Buddha's teaching. I mean, the depth of the Buddha's teaching, not just surface stuff, not just surface principles, as deep as it possibly can go. There's certain things they know with 100%, 100% certainty. They will stake their very life on it. It's that kind of belief and confidence. These kind of people will not kill an animal. They will not slaughter a sheep or a rabbit. It's impossible. They on the level of the mind and the physical body, they really can't do it. There's nothing in them that will lead them in that direction, and they know the dangers. They know the repercussions of what happens when you kill other beings. It's quite serious. They have the understanding. They don't have those intentions. They don't even want to kill little, like small ants. They'll do their absolute best, everything they possibly can, not to kill small creatures. Even if your hut, your hut gets invaded by a small colony of ants, they will do everything within their ability to manage that particular situation. So we're looking at absolutely no doubt about the teaching. No adherence to the wrong path, to wrong, say, rites and rituals. They will not follow a line of conduct which is not the Buddha's teaching. Skeptical out, adherence to rites and rituals. What's the third one? What's the third one? Can you guys help me? Sorry, the what? Yeah, the emptiness. Sorry, I haven't checked this for a long, long time. I've been caught up with this Russia-Ukraine thing. It's well, yeah. Unfortunately, it's yeah. It's a bit unfortunate, but yeah, it's what's happening at the moment. But yeah. So the emptiness principle, they know on an ultimate reality principle, there is no sense. There's no sense of self. There's no ego. The ego, they've penetrated the emptiness principle, and they know through personal experience there's no enduring entity. There's no real ego inside here. It's empty. They've gone right to the core of their being, and they'll put their life on this. There's nothing really inside you. The personality that you see, it's a fabrication. It's a condition. It's a condition. But you think, I think, and you think, it's me. It's us. Myself, and all the different facets. There's multiple facets of this sense of self. So the Sakadagami is like the Sotapanna, but they also, you're looking at a diminishing of say greed and aversion, hatred, anger, sensual greed. The forest masters will tell you the Sakadagami, those other major defilements, greed and aversion, greed, hate, jealousy, vindictiveness, revenge, it comes down by 50%. The mind of the Sotapanna is very, very pure. To give you an idea, as a reflection, a lay person who is a Sotapanna, the purity of that individual, that person has more purity, has more purity with their precepts, and has a greater understanding of the Buddhist teaching than say like for example a practicing monk or nun with at least 40 to 50 years of solid practice. It's that the realization is that deep by comparison. So that's the Sakadagami. The Anagami, you're looking at the complete elimination of sensual greed, of all aversion, greed, hate, jealousy, irritation, possessiveness, any kind of negative state of aversion, pushing away. So the Anagami grabs hold and attaches to nothing within the five sense world. They don't grab hold and they don't push away. So with that level of attachment, I don't want to get too complicated, especially the beginners. I don't want to use words that you're not familiar with. It's no fun for you guys. And the person who's fully purified has no attachment to anything in this universe, even deep, profound, really the most profound meditation that you can know of. That was taught by the Buddha. There is absolutely no attachment to absolutely anything on the mind or body whatsoever in this universe. And that will be the end of the path. The fourth level, once there is complete non-attachment to absolutely everything in this universe, karma and rebirth comes to an end, because there's nothing left to actually bring you to rebirth. Again, the consciousness, it's extinguished, it goes out. As the Buddha said, the consciousness goes out like a flame. When you take the fuel away, like a candle, when you extinguish say like the flame in a candle, it's out, bang, it's finished. The whole process, even the elements which make up the mind, absolutely everything on the level of the mind and the body is finished. I don't want to go into too much detail. I can go on easily for an hour just with that. How important is being alone compared to being around others? Well, it all depends who you are. I was over at Hermit's Hill for I think probably well over about 3-4 months, but it didn't work so well. I mean, the actual the quality of the kutis are very, very good as they get. I didn't have a walking path. Oh, the sun was absolutely baking hot. I couldn't walk meditation anywhere. I like to walk. I couldn't walk meditation anywhere. Even at the side of the kuti, past 1 p.m. I was working in the morning when it was cool. I've still got stuff from my mother. A little bit of work around the place, not a lot. And from 1 p.m. just baking hot. I couldn't walk in the forest. I couldn't walk at the side of the kuti, so that was no fun. I had to run the aircon when you had those incredibly hot days. The hut started to bake. I was dead. We've got aircon in those kutis, but without them, oh my God, you just cook. You'd be sweating like a pig. You just sit there, motionless, with a little angsa, and just your robes like this, little thin angsa that the monks wear when the weather's warm, and you'd be sweating, like just sitting on your cushion. So, but the bottom line was, I basically got bored. I couldn't walk meditation. The hut was overheating. I had to run the aircon constantly. I really like to walk, and I like to talk, to chit chat with people. I wouldn't call myself an incredible talker, but I like to chit chat with people here and there. And you just get lonely. You've got no one to talk to. You get bored. It's not very interesting. Your meditation's sort of compromised. And in the end, I thought, no, it's much better to be over in community. It's more interesting. And I don't struggle with the meditation. I can get peaceful. It doesn't make any difference what I'm doing at Bodhinyana. I can still get peaceful without a problem. But this particular meditation monk, who'd been with the best teachers in Thailand, told me straight up that at certain times it was good to be alone. At other times it wasn't. You're much better in community. So it all depends what you're actually going through at the time. To give you an idea, what can happen? We had a very good meditation monk come from Sri Lanka, and he had really, living in seclusion at Lagala. You're looking at what would you call it? National park, real national park, where you have to walk for absolute minimum through the forest. Nothing less than 30 minutes to an hour to get enough food, so you can easily be walking like a full hour out, maybe an hour back. One of our younger monks was on a hilltop in the west of Sri Lanka, and he walks for 2 hours to get back to his mountaintop where his kuti is. And depending on circumstances, sometimes he has to eat. He has to stop under a tree, maybe a cool spot, and needs to finish his food even before he gets back to his hut. And but the senior monk who had at least well over how many did he have? High 20s at least. Probably about at least 26, 27 at least. Even then, and he was a good practitioner. The sila was fantastic. Very, very nice monk. Well trained, deportment, kuti, fantastic. Very, very impressive. But his meditation was not bad, but it wasn't fantastic. And so it all depends who you are. You're looking at parami. But the thing is, he liked to be alone. He liked to live alone. The younger monk, they feel it's actually better for them. So when the senior monk, his mother got quite sick, he had to go home, look after his mum for 2 years, and when you practice for this period of time, you're very, very, very sensitive. And he was living in a local temple, and he was helping out with the local community. And when his mum recovered, either recovered or passed away. He went back to Sri Lanka. It took him 2 years to get his meditation back to where it was before he came over to support his mother. So stuff like this is not to be, and he's not silly. I mean, he really knows how to practice, and it took him 2 years to get the meditation back to where it was. So you see, you wonder. But I can't, for me, I can't speak for other people at all. It's you're looking, it's a completely different ball game from one person to another. You don't have to answer this, but curious to know your thoughts. Have you ever heard of humans causing electrical disturbances with their mind's energy? I can think of an example just come straight up. Let me think. Let me get this. Make sure this is right. Right. Yeah. This is what happened. A gentleman. Let's see now. Yeah. I did a funeral for a lady. Very, very good person. Had a lot of faith as a practitioner. I think she only been going for. I'm only guessing, probably about a year and a half, 2 years, but very, very strong faith. Husband was a practicing Christian, she was becoming a strong Buddhist. But when she passed, it was unfortunate circumstance. I won't go into detail; it takes too much time. But when she passed, the home that they were living, it seemed that she was turning the lights on and off multiple times in the house, and he's not a. It wasn't his imagination. It was happening during the day. It was happening at night, and it was like she was trying to tell him something. Those guys had been together, for a long, long time. And actually, let me get this right. I think they'd been married for. Oh my God! It must have been. It must have been at least well over 20 years. So they were quite close, but he was absolutely convinced it was her. It wasn't. This kind of phenomena, didn't happen at all until she basically passed away, and it went on. It'd been going on for a couple of weeks, and it was like she was trying to tell him something. I didn't clarify exactly what it was. Sometimes they're trying to convey maybe some message. Maybe it's the only way. Maybe it's the only way they can communicate with you. That's the only thing they can do. They can't reach you in your dream state. They can't appear like in front of you. And the only thing they can do is to affect the electrical connections in the house. And one mother who lost her young son, he was only 12, he committed suicide. It's quite tragic. But what he did was the computer. She was absolutely convinced it was his because it was the pattern was similar. This phenomena didn't happen until that family member had actually passed away. And he was turning computers on and off. He was changing the time of clocks and alarms, both normal clock. No, it was digital. Not. She never mentioned analog. It was. I'm not sure if that's the same. Digital clocks with LEDs. Either what do they call it? LED or LCD, and the computers. She didn't mention things like watches, but it kept coming up again and again and again. And but there's absolutely no doubt. We had a nun who was constantly being disturbed by ghosts and spirits, and with the nuns, they usually won't. It was like her mind was like an open pathway to the spirit realm, the ghost realms, and she could barely get to sleep at night. I wouldn't doubt it was true. It wasn't possible. Especially monks and nuns, they usually, they won't lie to your face because it's quite, the charges are very, very, very serious. So I would believe, I would certainly believe that was possible. But there was a teacher in Burma who never encouraged that kind of activity. He said it's better to steer your mind away. He said even if you develop the meditation or the psychic potential, where you've got almost like the internet inside your mind, as I mentioned with one of the other retreatants, there's just no end to this stuff. All you guys know how endless the internet is. Well, just imagine having the internet actually inside your mind, where you can know and see the most amazing things. Much more. The Russia-Ukraine thing is just an incredibly serious humanitarian disaster on the level of the world. But this psychic power capability, it goes to another level. It's like you can see and know things that other people cannot know, cannot see. Stuff that it can be past lives, it can be a deja vu. You can see what's coming up to someone. You can warn them. You can warn them before they're basically going to be wiped out in some major collision on Kwinana Freeway. As I already mentioned on a previous retreat, the spirit of the friend who had passed 6 months previous was still around, watching over his friend. Possibly may have known. I had a meditation master who told me something which come up for me like 6 months later. Can you imagine that? It's quite an extensive period of time. And his friend told him, his friend was there 6 months later and warned him, as he was moving on the Kwinana Freeway, was in the seat next to him, in spirit form, the consciousness, and told him once, and he thought it was in his imagination, told him twice. He still didn't get it, and he told him, he said, Mike, he said, David, he said, you have to pull over. He said, there's going to be a pile-up on the Kwinana Freeway, and he said, you will either be killed or you will be in ICU with major injuries for weeks on end. And after the third time, he pulled over, and he waited for, I think probably for well over 5 minutes or so. And something like, I think was it 90 seconds later? I don't know the exact duration, but it wasn't that long. And there was a major pile-up, and I think there was at least one person killed. There were 2 people in intensive care with life-threatening injuries. So these kinds of things are quite possible. But you're almost looking at a mind. You're looking at like a mind-to-mind connection. But it all depends on the power of your own mind, and it's the power of the spirit who's connecting with you, their ability to do things, to warn you, and whatnot. So, okay, this is a good point. I've had many instances over the last few years of TVs turning on by themselves, music playing randomly from my speakers in the middle of the night. Gee, that's a bit scary. Or lights flickering and random power outages. Used to think it was just an electricity problem at my place, but it happens other places too. I've noticed too that these events happen when I am feeling extremely emotionally charged or going through big life changes. Do you think it's possible or just a coincidence? It is possible. I'm not sure if the word is correct, but it is possible if people go through extreme emotions, that energy could be projected, and then it could be projected and start to affect physical things around you. I wouldn't doubt that. They talk about this kind of experience with, say, young people, especially in adolescence, and sometimes young teenage girls have more potential for this kind of activity than males. I haven't looked into it for years and years and years. You can check it very easily. but yeah, certainly possible. And a young lady, I was having a chat, she just lives up the road from I bumped into her the other day. She's a disciple of the monastery and Dhammaloka. She moved into a new residence, and it was a little bit spooky. She was getting nightmares. She was getting like funny dreams. There was funny voices, footsteps. There were I wouldn't say, call it poltergeist activity, mild poltergeist activity on a irregular basis. She was getting funny stuff happening in dreams, people talking, this and that. And she found out later that an elderly gentleman had died in her apartment, right before she moved in. And the gentleman had been dead in the residence for several days before the local people in that apartment complex realized what happened. And she's very sensitive, and I wasn't surprised at all. Will you get wisdom when you meditate? You will get it if you just sit meditation. You do no reflection, no thinking, no examination, no investigation. If you sit meditation like this, and you walk and sit, you will get a degree of intuitive insight. Things will come up, ideas, understandings, memories. You'll see connections. It will turn a light on. Certain things you'll get an understanding. Just basic walking and sitting. But if you're talking about substantial, what the right words? If you're talking about like established insight, firm insight, you've got to contemplate. You've got to think about what's happening to you, say after the meditation session, or even during. Say for example, your mind could have a lot of energy, could be quite active. You meditate for 5 minutes, sit and walk for 5 minutes, and then you start reflecting on your personal experience. Gain an understanding of your world, and then after you've contemplated, then you go back to the peaceful meditation, and for 5 minutes, and then go back to wisdom. So keep reflecting back and forth, but the energy, not only the understanding, but the energy that you generate with the investigation will give you more energy to deepen your peaceful meditation, your samadhi practice. And what's the right words? But it's that same thing. If you just meditate to get peaceful, you get a little bit of insight. But if you actively think and ponder and reflect, at times when it's appropriate for you, if it's every 5 minutes or maybe at the end of the session, it's what's suitable for oneself. It will be several times more. And the whole purpose of this path is for you to develop, like deep wisdom, either beginner's wisdom or advanced. The whole purpose of meditation practice at its highest level is to develop the wisdom which will break you through to the Buddha's teaching and get you enlightened. So everything you do is geared towards that principle. Let's have a look. How to deal with defilements such as anger and irritation. As many of you know, the easy way, the fast way, is to do sustained loving-kindness meditation for oneself. The reason you do it for yourself, because this is where the difficulty is coming from. You don't have to do metta for other people at all. To be quite honest, you just do it for oneself, because this is where it's happening. This is where your stuff is happening inside, inside one's mind. Radiating, loving kindness. May I be happy and well and free from all sorrow and pain. Just an example. But you do it sustained, slowly, continuously. Make it really strong, really firm, and you'll see the anger and irritation. It will subside. You do this every day, you'll see it subside over easily within 7 days, because metta is the antidote for anger. It's the what's the right words? It's the balancing force or energy for anger. The compassion is the balancing energy for cruelty. And those two, so that's the easy way. It's the fastest way. And so after you do your loving kindness for oneself, if it's really, really strong, if it's really a problem, just do it for 5 minutes straight, and then test it. Visualize that person. Visualize the most unpleasant experience with your person that you have trouble with, and put it to the test. Do I still get annoyed? Do I still get irritated? Do I still want to get that person back? That will be the test to see if the loving kindness meditation is actually working for you. So the thing is that all of us, we can have anger and irritation for several lifetimes running. So I'm not saying that it's just going to disappear within 7 days if you've had it for like 2 or 3 lifetimes. So, but the thing is that if you're looking at specifics, that's the way to go. But after the loving kindness meditation, then you develop your wisdom. Try to understand exactly what's happening. Why am I being triggered by this person? Why do I feel this way? And where and when? Under what circumstances? I've got someone who's the last time I saw them, it was like they were deliberately trying to antagonize and provoke me, and it's just crazy, because half the people in the community don't speak with this person, and why would you do that unless there's something like wrong, you don't what's the right words? Anyway. Okay, when meditating, I find myself struggle to focus on the body and breath. Can I focus on the train of thoughts that come into my mind as an observer? Yeah, that would still work to a degree. It may be, you might find it quite good. There was a senior female laywoman practitioner, meditation teacher, Khao Suan Luang. Khao, especially the Thai people, get the pronunciation right. I think it's Khao Suan Luang with the Thai. She'll know for sure. But this teacher, the laywoman teacher, she had a chapter on this. If her disciples, if her students were overwhelmed by thinking, then you use the thinking process as your object, and I'll absolutely guarantee you will definitely get some calm when you focus on the thinking. You're definitely sharpening your awareness, your attention, your mindfulness, and you'll definitely see it start to slow down, because you're gaining an understanding and insight. you're seeing the connections between thoughts and feelings and events and memories and moods and people. You know, you're seeing the patterns of this and that, and it will give you a degree of insight, and you'll definitely get a calming effect while you're watching. It could take, I'm only guessing, it could take 30 minutes to really see it happening, 30 minutes an hour. But then after you stop, you'll see the mind quieten a little bit more. It's something that happens. It's the way the mind works. But yeah, there's absolutely no doubt you might find it quite useful, because you'll just see just how just how it's not so useful. This babbling mind. It's just wasting a lot of energy, and it's not. And all the stuff that we think about, it's really not that useful. It's just rubbish. 90% of the stuff that we think about, it's just trash. It doesn't really do you any good whatsoever. But I wouldn't underestimate it for mindfulness training, for insight, and if that's the major thing which is happening for you, there's absolutely no doubt that you will get some benefit from it for sure. How can I most effectively use meditation and Buddhist principles to overcome addiction and habitual indulgence and craving for pleasure, comfort, distraction in my everyday life? Let's see now, what would I do? All right, what if I was addicted? That's a bit of a tough one. Overcome addiction, habitual indulgence and craving. All right, so all of us like sweets, like sweety things. That sweet that we had at the lunch today, that was very, very pleasant. I thought to myself, oh my God, should I? When I had it in my bowl, I thought, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have had two. I should have only had one. But after I had the first one, I thought, oh, I can definitely squeeze the second one in. But the meal was just fantastic. Really, really good. It was like restaurant quality, the way it was put together. Right, what would I do? Say for example, to get my mind working. All right, so I'm attached. I love. I'm really. One of our monks is, but I've got it as well to a degree. Maybe not so much. But very, very young monks really get into food, because when everything else is cut off, relationships, sexuality, movies, like Netflix, travel, major travel. What else? You just can't do, restaurants. You just can't go and do what you like. You just can't go out and hang out with your friends like at any time. You can't. You just can't leave the monastery at night. We have a rule where monks cannot go into town after noon, midday, and without informing another monk, because basically keeping you out of trouble. People can get up to all sorts of dodgy things in the evening, cruising. Can you imagine monks cruising around Perth at night? Anything can go wrong. They had a monk. They had a monk in. It was years and years ago. He was an Asian monk. He really didn't. I don't know if he really understood what was happening, the dynamics. But you got to be mad. He was in the red light district in Amsterdam. I don't think he was interested in going to girly places, but maybe maybe the clubs, cafes, this and that, but he ended up getting roughed up by some guy who was drunk, and he roughed him up and ripped his robes. And so that's the last place you want to be as a Buddhist monk. how can I most effectively use my, where are we? Okay. Oh, let me get this right. Habitual indulgence. All right. This is the classic. This one's a hard one to deal with, because with most of us, food is a big thing. Sexuality is a big thing. Netflix and YouTube, and it could be Twitter and this and that. I've got no idea about Twitter and Facebook, but people love this stuff, and I'm basically I'm studying this Russia, because it's such incredibly serious. It's just tragic. I'm studying this Russia-Ukraine thing. I'm in every single day when I have my cup of tea. So I've got my own thing rolling at the moment. But I like my lovely, tasty foods, but I tend to be careful with my diet. You've got to be careful with your health. So how do we deal with it? I mean, food is a big thing for people. One of our ladies, very nice person, she went to 8 precepts for about several weeks, and she said, and she was quite strict, and she said after she cut everything off, all the major stuff that we know with the 8 precept lifestyle, she said she got into her food in a really big way. And the next time I saw her, she was a little bit plump, and then she had to work to get like a couple of kilos to get a couple of kilos out of the way. But the thing is, if say for example with the monks, this one's a tricky thing. But what I would do if I want to be, if I talk quite seriously about this. I've got say serious problems with food. I'm really into food in a big way. What I would tend to do is I would, if I was eating, say for example I was on if I was in lay life. Every time you get into your food, whatever you do, don't go for the big time. Have a bowl or a dish that you use, and this is the dish that you use for lunch, say dinner or tea or even breakfast, and you don't go beyond that dish. I've seen it very, very clearly when I use a plate. If I've got a small bowl like this, you've got a workable limit. You can't go beyond that point, because your stuff is just basically falling out of the bowl onto the floor or table. You've got the other monks with you. It's just embarrassing. But if you've got like a plate, you could put like almost easily 2 to 2.5 times as much stuff on that plate. You can pack it with pancakes and croissants, with your fruit. And this and that, and it's like almost if I pack that plate, to the max, I mean that would be a solid meal, and I could live on that till the following day, till breakfast. So in a nutshell, you have a bowl, and you can't go beyond that point. So that there's a workable limit. And you have a certain amount of meals per day, and what's another principle you could use? Maybe you not eating after 12. This is another difficult thing. If you're on 8 precepts, you don't eat after roughly about 12 noon or the high point of the sun. That may not be so easy, or you do things like. You try to keep your diet. You've got to be very careful with food, because food is like it's like a fuel. It's if your diet is really rich, really rich, tasty stuff and lots of it, you might find that the craving actually makes it even worse. So what you can do is have all your healthy vegetables and bits and pieces. And then you have your really rich. You have a small quantity of your really rich, tasty, fatty, greasy stuff on the side, and you make it so it's not more than say 25% of the total. So you've got your bowl, your bowl that you max out, and then all the sweets and the grilled, it could be braised steak and whatever, the stuff that you really love, you don't go past the 25 or 30% say point. What else could you do? Things like, you've got to be careful. You can do body contemplation. It does work, but you've still got to be very careful with this kind of thing. What else could you do? Do things like sometimes even like lollipops, and sounds a bit weak, but instead of getting stuck into your food, you could use lollipops to keep the craving at bay. I don't know if I could do that, but I mean, I could. When you've got a fridge full of stuff, it's a bit of a poor excuse. I can't really think of anything else. Okay. Last night you spoke about not having tranquility without investigation and wisdom. This makes a lot of sense to myself. How do you cultivate balancing the mind to the right level of knowing to then surrender? So, let's see if I can get myself together here. Just give me a minute. See if I can get myself together. Last night, tranquility without investigation. Listen to me. How to cultivate balancing the mind to the right level, knowing, and surrender. All right. So what I do? So we're looking at tranquility, peaceful meditation, wisdom, understanding, investigation. So the bottom line is, in a nutshell. So with a meditation, you as you know clearly, you have two sides of the practice. You've got to keep those faculties, those principles in balance. No matter what style of practice you do, no matter what kind of investigation, people can do. You can do meditation. In a dozen, even the lay practitioners. You could probably do it in a dozen different ways. But the bottom line is that your wisdom, it's got to, whatever level of peace that you can develop, your wisdom has got to be at the same level or stronger consistently. You never, ever, ever allow your wisdom to drop behind. The wisdom, to be quite honest, the wisdom has more power, realistically, when we're talking about meditation power, the ability to get, say, very quite deep and profound meditation and real insight, not airy-fairy, fluffy insight, real earthy stuff. It's reflection and contemplation and developing this all-knowing, all-round understanding. That you never, ever neglect it, because you can do this peaceful meditation, sitting and walking. It's all very nice. You can do it for 10 to 20 years. But if the wisdom faculty is neglected, then that same principle again is you're just wasting your time. So I've got to be careful. I don't want to repeat myself too much. Okay. I think we're all done. Are we all done? Okay. And I need to go to the toilet. Yeah, but excellent questions. Ajahn Brahmali just did a retreat with the Singaporean fraternity, and he was going all day. I think it was close to about 8 hours, and for 5 days straight.